Welcome to LYLAS. If you grew up in the 90s and know what that stands for, then by default, this podcast is for you.
So happy to have everybody. Yes, so happy to have everybody continuing to join us to listen into our podcast. Blows my mind, 10 in.
I know. I'm so proud of us. We're doing it. We're doing the damn thing.
That's exactly right. Your word of consistency has really paid off because here we are being consistent.
We're trying. That's the goal, right? Just got to keep doing it.
Every day, just keep plugging away at something, which is why we thought that this topic that we're going to discuss today, I guess, is just so important. You know, the schedules and routines. Really. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've talked about it so much, or we've kind of dropped a few nuggets here and there in the last couple episodes about how important our rituals and routines are to us individually. But today we're going to do a deep dive and really go into what our personal rituals or routines look like and how we got them started, sort of how we chose each of our, the things that we do in our routines and how they've benefited us in many ways, specifically to help with, mental health first and foremost, but also just to show ourselves that self-care, that self-love that is so important. So I'm excited to talk about this. I could talk about this subject all day.
I know it is fun because it's so practical and it's something that honestly, I just feel like so many people just struggle with on a day-to-day basis because the idea of doing it just seems so big and grand that it's like, well, where do you even start? What do you even do? And, as we kind of talk about it, having our own personal schedule and routines is important, but also for our family, it is critical. And you know this better than I, but even just for like child development reasons, like having that kind of consistency just helps them to grow and bloom even more within their lives too. And so, yes, this is a fun one. I love it. I live it. I hope everybody has something that they want to contribute to it.
Well, I think for rituals, I used to tell parents a lot of routines, like children thrive in routines. I personally thrive in routines. I know both of us are diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. And so we both certainly creatures of habit and thrive in a routine. You get us out of a routine and it can be a little bit more difficult for us, especially in a professional setting. But routines, at least for me, it was the only way I survived as a working mom with two little kids and a husband that traveled quite a bit. And so I really, especially when I was thinking back when I was working, because, up until 9 months ago, I was a working mom. And I had it down to like a science. I would get up at like 4:30, 4:45 in the morning. I would sometimes squeeze a workout in and then, start like morning of like packing lunches and getting everybody ready. And we were out the door by 6:15 and I was picking up my Starbucks at 6:20 and we were standing at the preschool, at 7 or at 6:30 when they opened, so I could throw them in and then zoom off to work and get there by 6:50, 6:55. So that routine came out of necessity. So when I stopped working, I really, when I go back and read my journals from like August, September, when I would have been back to work, typically, I noticed that I was just like floundering. Like I can read, I was writing, like I'm really struggling. And so I picked up the book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. And I started reading it and it was just talking about how habits sort of take over. Once you build a habit, it's like a muscle and it sort of takes over to the point where you don't even have to think about it. Like you just start doing it once you've started doing something. And most people know it takes about 30 days to establish a habit. And so all the things I was listening to, everything I was reading between that book and the podcasts I was listening to, they all seem to be talking about habits and having sort of our routines. And so I came up with this. I'm going to do 5 things every day. I'm going to do my 5 daily habits. And so I started just kind of listing, I took stock of like, what are my good habits? What are the things that I already do in a day that are good? And then what are some things that I might want to improve or add to my daily habits? What are some things that I'm trying to improve upon? So I sort of took stock in that. And so I wanted to marry the two. I picked a couple that I already did for the most part. And then a couple of things that I wanted to add into my routine and came up with my 5 things.
I love it.
And so, yeah, it just sort of, and it just sort of works for me. Like at first it took a lot of effort and I didn't hit all five things every day. I was like, okay, I got three out of the five done today. But ever since, the new year has rolled around, I've been working on consistency and doing everything, all five things consistently every day. And I always say, like, I feel like superwoman if I can get all five of them accomplished by 8:30 in the morning. Because it
Wow.
takes, getting up before the kids and really doing those things, not doom scrolling on Instagram or whatever,
Doom scrolling. That is
scrolling is what we call it
hilarious.
at our house. Um,
Never
so
heard
yeah,
that
I mean,
before.
it takes some planning and practice, but that's sort of how I got started with my daily five, which I kind of like live and die by that ritual, and it helps me. It bring me back to me. It helps me feel like myself. I enjoy that time by myself. I know that I'm doing things to better myself. I
Mhm.
have this like core belief that if I do these five things every day, I will better myself. And that's ultimately the goal, at
Mhm.
least for me. So that's sort of how I got started. How did you get started with your routines? Is it something that you've been doing for a long time, or is this a new routine for you?
Um, honestly, my so much of my life by it just has to come out of necessity, I think. And as I kind of talked about, I think like at episode 3, um, my life changed whenever I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And that disease in and of itself does require you to be very aware and to have some patterns of complete consistency just in order to kind of maintain your health. But then I think that also happened at the time in which I was becoming a mom. And, I had already done like this 10 years of education that was supposed to like, help me understand how to hopefully raise a good human or be one. And it just it really came from all of those things combining together at one point in time, and knowing that if I was able to do this with him, then he would also thrive in having some kind of structure within his life. And so the way that I kind of conceptualize my schedule and routines is kind of like a tree. And I think of routines as being the roots of the tree that have to be grounded, that really need to be the things that stay consistent within my life. And then the branches of this tree are strong, but they can also withstand the wind as it's starting to come. And that's my schedule. And all of our schedules change so much due
Mm-hmm.
to work, due to doing things with our parents, with our significant others, with our children, with our dog, with whoever is around at that point in time, including ourselves maybe in that zone. And so I always think of it as that I have to make sure that my roots, which are my sleep habits, like it's important for me to have. And I even say this to my patients, I'm like, I'm sorry, but you have to have a bedtime. Like we can negotiate as to what that bedtime's going to look like, but guess what? You're still at every age of life. It's important for us to have some type of bedtime, and we have to have some type of consistent wake time. And so my sleep habits are very structured and consistent. And even whenever I travel and go places, I have to be very aware of trying to keep that a piece of
Mm-hmm.
things too, just because again, a lot of my blood sugar a lot of time is regulated by rest and sleep. And so my metabolism, which is a part of your sleep cycle, everything can get messed up if that doesn't stay on point. And so I'm very consistent whenever it comes to that. Meal times. I always have to make sure that I am, again, consistent on those types of things just for a life-based kind of structure. And then activity. And so that's what I kind of think of as my grounding for my routines. It has to focus on those three things. But I'm not rigid in terms of when like my physical activity kind of component gets done. Whenever you were talking about getting up at like 4:30 in the morning, I was like, oh my God. like, like I'm an early person too, but my body runs like a computer. So it shuts down and it's down. And then whenever it boots, it's up, but it does
Yeah.
not typically boot at like 4:30. And so I try and I use an app. And you talked about your Melissa Wood app. It's called Better Me. And I actually saw it through like scrolling, probably doom scrolling now, new word.
Yeah.
on like Facebook or something, and it was talking about like different workouts that you could do, and some of it was wall Pilates. And I was like, well, I like wall workouts. I like things that just rely on you for your own source of strength and movement. And I've never been able to watch something on my phone and then kind of go through with it. So some people were able to do yoga virtually and stuff like that. I was never that person. I could learn dance routines from those videos in the 90s, but I could not do the Denise Austin like workout routine. I don't know what the difference was, but there must have been something. But I do that, and I just have it as part of my schedule that I do it as I can. And so I may do that workout in the morning. It may be in the afternoon. It may be in the evening, but it's at least a 30-minute workout that I'm trying to get in just to have that movement as part of my life. And then that way, whatever happens with my schedule is able to flow just kind of like the branches of a tree easier because I'm so grounded in what my routines are. So that's what I found that's kind of worked well for me. And again, it's mainly became, in so many ways out of necessity that those things are so consistent within my life. But it has helped because I'm such a squirrel in every other way, or have so many other hats that just get shifted based upon every 15 minutes of the day as to what I'm doing. So that's pretty well with that, I would say.
Yeah, I completely agree that it will help ground you just having some sort of routine to come back to. I feel like it's a great grounding technique, which we've talked a lot about this season as well. My daily 5, when I said I picked the 5 things, there were some things that I was already doing that I just wanted to be more consistent at. So I've talked a lot about like meditation. That's definitely one of my daily 5. But the very first thing that I do when I wake up, the first thing on my list is hydration. Because I think, just like rest, I think being properly hydrated is equally as important. So the first thing I do is I just added this new habit in, but I started athletic greens, which is like a powder that you mix in with water. It's for all like vitamins and helps with like digestion, those types of things. So I have that on an empty stomach, and then I have my hot water with lemon. And then once I finish that, I meditate usually for like 15 to 20 minutes. And then I have a cup of coffee. And that is like one of the most blissful hours of my entire morning. Like I thrive when I get to do all of those things sort of back to back. And then typically after I finish my coffee, I'll do my workout for the day. So that's what I say. If I can get like those 4 things done before 8:30 or even 7 before the kids wake up, I feel like superwoman because the rest of the day is mine. And then my 5th thing that I do after my workout is I try to listen to a podcast, read a book, journal, something like that, just for more of my mind, just to give my mind some more love. So those are my daily 5, my ride or die. Like I have to get those things done. My non-negotiables, as I tell myself, like they have to be done for me to be my best self every day. And it's been amazing to me how once I started doing those 5 things consistently, it made such an impact on the rest of my day, on my motivation, on my attention, on my mood. That's probably the biggest one. My mood, once I get those 5 things out of the way, like I feel like I could conquer the world. And so I see the benefit that so many people were talking about in establishing like your daily habits. I see the benefit of practicing that with consistency every day. It just sort of takes over. You don't have to think about it. You can be traveling. You can do those 5 things no matter where you are. And, one thing that we had talked about is like establishing something that works for you. So my daily 5 works for me. I curated it just for myself, but I think every person kind of has to come up with their non-negotiables when forming some sort of routine or ritual that they're going to do every day. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And I think whenever you start to do this, because this is something that the idea of it, again, it just sounds so big to kind of tackle. Just start with the very basics, and I would just really don't hold yourself to it with a tight grip either. Be forgiving of yourself whenever you are starting this process of figuring out what's best for you, because you're not going to likely get it on the first go. Like it's going to take a bit of time for you to really set in and see, wow, I feel better whenever I do this, or I feel worse whenever I don't.
Right.
And the only way that you're going to find that out is by forgetting to do one of those things, or is by adding something else in or taking something out. And I just feel like that's really important to be forgiving of yourself as this process starts to happen, but
Mhm.
also to know that it evolves over time as well. And so as different things happen and change within your life, don't be afraid to shake it up just a bit to accommodate whatever other changes, you might be going through at that kind of point, whether it's a death, a birth, a job change, a breakup. It just doesn't matter. But just know that those external factors too are going to, weave
Cause
into,
you to shift.
yeah, what you're doing. And just to kind of, again, the goal is not perfection. I think sometimes whenever we use the word consistency, it's, a join to perfection, and that's not it. Consistent is just, a behavior that you're trying to implement given your best effort,
Mhm.
not one that you are have to be very, very so rigid on that if you don't do it, then the world's going to crash, because there's going to
Yeah.
be a day where that happens, and you need to press that reset button, and you feel like it's inaccessible until tomorrow. It's not. There's the button's here. It's always there. We just have to kind of sometimes reel ourselves in, I think, from that moment in order to do it. So if I oversleep one day, or if I don't, get that 30-minute workout in, I have to be forgiving with myself in the day that happens, and not get so hung up like I didn't accomplish something because I didn't do
Right.
it. It was that there were other interferences that kind of came in. So I just need to, again, be patient, be kind, and committed to getting back into that routine without allowing it to, serve as a train wreck for my day as much
Right.
as
Don't
what's
let it
possible.
totally derail what you're doing. And
Yeah.
we talked a lot about how we both were sort of transitioning from our careers over
Mhm.
this season. And for me, that transition, having worked basically since I was 15, I was really just sort of like floundering in the beginning of not working and being a stay-at-home mom. And it felt like I really didn't have any worth, which sounds so stupid to say out loud now, but I did. I was really struggling with, like, who am I? You always kind of attach yourself to whatever profession you're doing at the time. And so I was really struggling with having, like, just some sort of like idea of who I was, going into this new season of life, not knowing how long it would last or anything like that. And so once I sort of started to establish this routine, to do every morning, it kind of gave me like something to do also, having, like, my mornings were so scheduled. They were so rigid before. I had to leave the house at a certain time to get to work on time. And, it creates a lot of anxiety for me if things don't go the way that I expect them to go. And so just having this to sort of fall back on gave me something else to focus on in the mornings. So, like, nope, I got to get my water, I got to get my coffee, I got to meditate, I got to get these things done so that I can, move on with the rest of my day. But it really has served such a huge piece of me trying to transition from being a full-time working mom into a full-time stay-at-home mom. I'm about to
Mhm.
transition again into a part-time working mom. And so again, I'm going to have to, my habits or my rituals are going to change a little bit based on having to get out the door and figure that stuff out again, going to a new place. But I'm committed to those, and I've been practicing them for so long now, for so many months. I've sort of built that muscle up that I feel confident that I can
Mhm.
add or move it to a different part of the day if I have to. But I feel pretty confident that I can continue on with my daily 5, and if not, add some more to it. Like,
Mhm.
certainly, like you said, as we change and our situations evolve, some of our habits and our rituals are going to change as well. And
Mhm.
that's okay too. It's a fluid process. It's like
Yeah.
anything. You have your goals, and then you need to kind of come up with how you're going to achieve those goals. Um, So yeah, I found it so useful in any kind of like transition in life, whether you just had your
Mhm.
first baby, you just had your second baby, all of those things require you to come up with some sort of routine,
Right.
bedtime routines, all their whole lives, especially those first couple of months after you have a new baby, your whole life is routine bound.
Hmm.
And so having something for yourself to come back to is so important. So many new mothers struggle with anxiety, depression, postpartum depression, having
Yes.
something for themselves to transition because it's hard for everybody. I don't care who you are. That's a transition that, it's very easy to kind of lose yourself in. And you've got to come back to yourself. And what are you doing to show yourself love and grace in this transition of your life?
Oh, I totally agree. I think the way you put it is beautiful too. Like it just having these things kind of set, it is self-care, it is self-love, it is a healthy behavior. And going to again, I love it that the kids know that, we have certain bedtimes or that we have certain
Mhm.
routines and schedules because it gives them confidence and it teaches them a skill too. So for your kids to even know what you do as part of your routines, that's something that I think that they pick up on and appreciate it and are curious about too. So it is. It's just so important in every area of our life. I am very curious about something though. So I think if I
Yeah.
am, probably maybe other people are. So whenever you do your meditative practice, and you say you can do
Yeah.
it kind of anywhere, which is awesome because we do need to have like those Swiss Army knives that can come out at any point. What are you doing? Like, are we
Yeah.
sitting in like a
You
dark
know,
corner?
that
Like,
has a whole ritual with it in itself. And that one changes from time to time, but the basics, the same things that I do every day. I've got, my hot water with lemon. I usually finish it. I usually brew my coffee right before I meditate so that it is like cooled
mhm.
off enough for me to drink like the minute I'm done. So I'll brew my cup of coffee, I'll have it sitting there. And then I have this little like, I don't know what it is. It's like a little jar of potpourri that my mother-in-law sent me from this hippie store I like out in Breckenridge. And I take a couple sniffs of it. Just I do a really deep inhale and then exhale. It's got some essential oils in it. And then I usually put some like lavender on my wrists, or I've got some like lavender lotion I'll put on my hands just to kind of like rub them together, kind of get that fire started. And then I put my earbuds in and I pull up my Melissa Wood Health app, go to meditations, and just whatever I'm feeling that day. She's got so many on that site and she's brought on so many other creators that have different styles of guided meditation, which at first I was like, well, this is a little even too woo for me. But now that I've gotten into them, like I dig it. I like it. I like the way it makes me feel. It certainly has me have a much more positive view of myself. And it's just completely changed my mindset. And so I dig it all. But yeah, I open my app. I kind of go through what I'm feeling that day, what I feel like I need, and I choose my meditation, and I just drop right in, and it's guided meditation. I think that's important. I'm not sitting there trying to just like clear my head. It's very specific. You're focusing on your breathing. Sometimes they will give you like mantras. So, like on your inhale, you might think like I am. And then on your exhale, it would be right here just to help you ground and focus on where you're at. And in the beginning, I did like the much shorter meditations, like 5 minutes, 7 minutes. And I really struggled. And a lot of times I'd be thinking about something else. But I knew that if I stuck with it, I would get better at it. And now, like I say, I could meditate for 20 minutes and it feels like 2 minutes. And I drop into this place that I didn't even know really existed in my mind, where I can think about, you can still think, but you're also so focused on your body and your breathing that it's like another, I don't, it's like another level. It's next level for me. And then it's once you finish, it's not, sometimes, I don't feel it immediately. Like I might still be a little bit irritated or whatever. The next one's different, the general ritual of starting a meditation. Sometimes if I'm feeling super woo, I'll get like some sage out and like clear the air. Or if it's just like I've been in a funk, sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I'll
Mhm.
light a candle. Depends on my vibe that day, how much time, if the kids are here, all those things.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the basics that I just went through, like that's what every single day looks like for me at the start. And yeah, I'm just a big believer. I'm, you know,
That's so cool. Yeah, I'm glad that you share that with us because I think that, it is one of those topics that whenever we bring it up, like people do meditation, it just has that, like you said, kind of woo or mystic or, ancient, or are we being too cool here to say these types of things, right? But I mean, it's been around for like 2000 years. So who's really
right.
trying to be too cool? If we're going to down something like that, it's a part of a different religious faith too. I mean,
That's
um,
a great point. That's what Jeff always says. He's like, I see why you gravitate to it because it is so like kind of religious, practice in a sense. And a lot of times I will pray at the end of my meditation because I do, consider myself fairly spiritual. And
mhm,
so I do a lot of times have a prayer or send love to people that I know are hurting or people I feel like could use some love, or I'll kind of like dedicate my meditation to them, if that
sure.
makes sense, sort of like you might your yoga practice. But
Mhm, mhm.
I do think it's a great time to sort of drop into prayer because you are so focused at the moment. At least I am. And that's rare for
Mhm.
me to be that focused on something, not be thinking about a million other things. So, um, yeah, he always says that it is very like religious almost in a sense. Um,
Yeah. I get the
but
feel of that. Like for me, I do more of an active meditation. Like it's just my body physiologically. I have three autoimmune conditions that are all hyper. So everything is, which I guess in some ways is fine, but there's no settle down. You know what I mean? Okay, the plug's been pulled out for the night, but it's going to recharge and be ready to boot the next day. And so for me, it's that active meditation kind of from different forms of movement, but it does have that spiritual side to it that I just feel more connected. And I think for most, whatever your religious practice is, elements of self care, of being present in the moment, of just allowing yourself to be are cornerstones, at least, to my knowledge base of like the three, maybe four biggest religions in the world that exist is having that kind of space and time with things. So I do think that that's a key part of it. I even know from like my yoga experience, one of um, my greatest teacher that I had throughout all of it, she would almost start every practice and end every practice with some type of uh, prayer, whether it was in Sanskrit or whether it was in English or whatever it was. But it was always this way to kind of like drop in and to be present within it. And
mhm.
it's so nice to have that as an added benefit to it too, So.
Yeah. So one of the creators on the Melissa Wood Health app, she does a lot of like chants at the beginning or maybe at the
Mm-hmm.
end. And so I do them now. Like I said, it was a little woo for me in the beginning, but now I've come around to it and I'm full in.
Drank the
But I,
Kool-Aid.
right, totally drank the Kool-Aid. But I often wonder like what my kids and my husband think when they can hear me up here chanting, because I tend to meditate upstairs sort of away from everybody. But even my kids know, like mom's doing her morning routine. They know they can come up, but like they don't bother me. They don't like Jolie came up today and said, she wanted breakfast. And she's
Mhm.
like, I didn't want to bother you. I know you were doing your meditations. like,
Aw.
a
Mhm.
part of me feels good that I'm trying to model for them positive self help and to be aware that it's okay to take care of yourself and to make time for things that are important to you and that make you feel good about yourself. And so I feel good that she sees me work out at home. My husband and I both have kind of always been gym rats. We've been going to the gym since forever. And in the last couple of years, really since COVID, I mean, I've dabbled with a few gyms, but ever since I left Orange Theory, I really basically just do home workouts, like go for a
Mhm.
run, or I'll do, Pilates on Melissa Wood, or um, I did E2M, so I have access to all of their workouts. But I think it's important to model that for our kids too, that they see it. They don't necessarily see it when we go to the gym. They would see us sort of like passing like two ships to take turns. But when two parents are trying to go to a gym, that can eat up like 4 hours of your day. by the time,
Yeah.
you stretch, you do all the things, at least 3 hours. And so at least when I work out at home, I do these quick workouts. My kids are seeing me. Sometimes she joins in with me. But just modeling that, I think, makes me feel like I'm doing something right.
Oh,
When I see her,
100%. Mm-hmm.
when I see her, she'll get mad. She got frustrated and she'll take a deep breath. Like she's
Mm.
using some of the same tools that she's seen me do. And so I think that it just makes me feel like I'm doing something right. I truly
Yeah.
believe in the things that I'm putting into practice. I think that's the bottom line, is that I believe that these are all good things that help us be the best version of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't that what we're trying to teach our kids anyway? I don't know.
100%. Yeah. No, I think I will not tell anyone, or I will not, under most circumstances, model any type of any type of behavior that I would think that would be ineffective or harmful to anyone else. Like I'm not ever going to tell anybody to do something that I would not do or that I don't believe in 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't do it. I don't have a poker face. You can tell if I'm lying. So at those points, it's best just for me to be like brutally honest and just be like, okay, well, there's no sugarcoating to this. So here we go. But yes, I just think that, and the buy-in that you have personally to it, whenever that's there, it doesn't feel like it's work. It doesn't feel like it's something that you have to do. It's something that you want to do, and that it does have a different feel to it. And so you're right, that buy-in just becomes so important to have.
Well, and that buy-in comes from you being the creator, you being the one to decide, okay, what's my daily routine look like? And not someone handing you this prescription saying, here's what I want you to do every day. In some situations, people might benefit from that, but I think of it like a behavior intervention plan. When I was working with a teacher, I could hand them I could come up with the greatest behavior plan on the planet,
right.
but I didn't have to implement it. They did in their classroom with 19 other kids. And I would often say to them, this has to work for you. I don't know what works in your classroom with your kids. I can help design one, but ultimately, to get a teacher to buy into a behavior plan, to get yourself to buy into a ritual and a routine, you have to have part in creating that plan.
Absolutely.
And so I think that comes from deciding what works for you. I picked 5 things. 5's my lucky number. I like the whole idea of like the daily 5. I was listening to a podcast. I think it was the Skinny Confidential, when they were talking about her daily routine. I mean, her daily routine has like 30 things on it. I was like, no way could I do all of these things. I mean, but clearly like she has built this routine that works for her. And a lot of those things she was probably already doing. But I was like, I'm going to start with 5. And if I can get those 5 things done, I'm going to feel pretty good about myself. And I do. I mean, and so, like I said, at some point I'll start adding some things to it, but I want to get to where these 5 things happen so seamlessly every day that I don't even have to think about it, that I could literally just do them with my eyes closed. And that's sort of my goal. And then I'll add to it. But again, I just think it's you creating that, and that gives you the buy-in. And, I think it helps to add in some things that you already do, maybe not super consistently, but some things that, like coffee. I knew I was going to drink coffee every day. So put it in there, make it one of your goals,
Right. Give yourself credit for something you're already doing.
Credit for what you're already doing. In most cases, I'm going to read a book or a Bible verse, or write in my journal or something, or listen to a podcast. I'm going to do one of those things every day. So that's why I added that in as, oh no, I only listed 4 things. I just remembered my 5th thing. I must have separated 2 of them because I thought I went over all 5. But my 5th thing is my gua sha. And I never missed a day to gua sha. And and again, I knew every day I'm going to put lotion on my face and, makeup for the most part. And so that's just part of my everyday. And I call it gua sha and gratitude. So while I'm gua shaing my face, I just sit there and give lots of gratitude for all the things in my life that I'm grateful for. And so I think it also helps to come from a place of gratitude. It helps start your day off on the right foot. And again, all of those things that are one of those things that I'm going to do regardless. So added that one in as well. So yeah, my daily 5 is hydration, meditation, move my body, washa and gratitude.
Love that.
And what am I missing? Meditation. Did I say that one?
Yeah.
Oh, podcast, read, or write in my journal. Yeah. Journal. So those are my daily 5 that are my non-negotiables.
You see, and mine come from a place of like, really, I guess an area of 3. Sleep has got to be a part of it.
Which is a great, that's a great habit to have, is a good sleep pattern.
Well, it's a behavior, you know what I mean? It's what we train our babies to do is sleep. And as adults, we also have to continue to think of it as that behavior, because it does help us in so many just different life areas. Our whole metabolism, emotional regulation system is based upon our sleep patterns. And so sleep for me it has to occur even whenever I'm traveling. So we have, I think we're going to have a big trip by the time this airs. And so I'll let you know how it goes, because I've never done it this way. But our goal is to stay up all night. I don't know how this is going to happen. No clue, because I can drink coffee at 10 o'clock at night and be in bed at 10:30.
Same.
Yeah. Same. No effect.
Same.
So somehow we're going to have to stay up all night long and then sleep during the flight, because whenever we wake up where we're going, it's just going to be like, I don't know, a different time, like a different day. And we're just going to have to be ready to go.
And where are you going?
Seoul, South Korea, and then to Japan. We're going to Kyoto and Tokyo. So, yeah.
So we're a day ahead, essentially.
Yes.
And we've there.
Yeah. And we've done those long flights before, like whenever we went to, where the hell were we? Jordan and to Qatar. But we always would leave at nighttime so we could sleep then. And then we'd wake up and it would be like in the mid-afternoon, wherever we were at there, like in Europe and stuff like that. But this time it's going to be like whole other time zone. So it'll be like morning. I don't know what time it'll be. I'll have to look, but we know we're going to have to stay up all night. And so me maintaining that kind of sleep pattern is important. One trick I do use whenever I go places is I wear a watch, like an old school watch that's not like an Apple one that updates wherever you're at. And I never change the time on it from my home destination.
That's a great idea.
Well, it helps for, like, I have to take my insulin a certain time. So it's at that time, you know what I mean? My time there is not the same time here. So, but I keep that there so that way I'm always like grounded to a constant in a way. And it helps with that pattern. And so my meal times, non-negotiable. I always believe in nourishing your body and taking the time to do so, and in doing it in a way that again promotes that fueling process for whatever it is that your body, however it processes its own fuel, that you are able to do it. And then making sure that there is some type of like activity or movement throughout the day. And then at any time that things just get kind of squirrely or challenging, I think of the roots of the tree. Visual imagery is really important to me. I can think about, like, see a whole lot of things, and it makes it very calming. And then I think about the branches kind of flowing, and the branches are the schedule. And so I'm just going to be flowing with the schedule. The only place where my schedule, and I know I'll get called out on this, so I just probably got to just own it. My work schedule, it is a tight oiled machine. If any of my patients ever did happen to listen to this podcast, they'd be like, "Girl, you are." No. So it is very, very, very rigid in terms of my time at that place. And so that is the only place where things are very, like, on point.
No flexibility.
Which
is so interesting. We should do an episode on how different our jobs were. Because you're a clinical psychologist. I was a school psychologist, or am a school psychologist, I should say. And my day, like, there was so much flexibility in my day because I never knew what crisis I was dealing with. And so, I could have a whole day planned, but it rarely went as planned. So my mind had to be very flexible in that, okay, what are my priorities? What are my non negotiables that have to get done on this day? And then the rest of the day, just kind of, you have to leave yourself the opportunity. Maybe you're going to have to chase a kid down the street. Maybe you're going to have to
Yeah.
file a report. You just never knew where the day was taking you. And so I had to be very flexible mentally with my schedule at work.
Mhm.
Whereas at home, I had to be super rigid in I have to get up at this time. I have to get my stuff done because the afternoons for my brain shuts down at 4 o'clock. And I couldn't, I could work out, especially before kids. I used to like to work out in the evenings, but once you have kids, I mean, it's just them. You're catering to them all afternoon and evening after school, trying to give them some attention and cook meals or do the bedtime bath routines. And so I felt like everything outside of my work was super rigid and scheduled, and my work was kind of like my flexibility place. So it's interesting, like that we're the opposite in that.
Yeah.
Given that we're both psychologists, but our jobs are just so different in what we do. I mean, you're much more of a clinical psychologist, or you are a clinical psychologist. You're doing more of like therapy, whereas I was doing more of like educational plans and working with students with special needs. So definitely two different jobs, but just looking at how our routines were so different, but still worked for each of us,
Yes, that's the thing. It works for each of us, and our personalities, I think we're able to kind of gel within it. And so, but they are two very different worlds. And that's what I think is cool about our podcast is that we're able to bring, psychology is such a broad field and has so many different layers and components to it that, I am not able to sit here and speak intelligently about the stuff that Jen does. There's no way.
And vice versa. I mean,
there's no way.
Yeah.
So it's nice that spectrum can be brought in, and that even whenever each one of us are talking, I can hear the inner layers that kind of connect the two. But no.
Nope. You're like, if it's not on the schedule, it's not happening.
No,
Dr. Stevens.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. And this is where I do lose my shit. If my schedule, and everybody knows it, and we just have to just say yes. Sometimes you just have to say yes. Whenever you lose something, you just have to be like, yes. If my schedule for some reason gets disrupted, oh no.
That'll set you off.
Those are not good times. Yeah, we have to really, but again, so much of that is just driven by the world in which you live in and what you work in. I think whenever we get home, we have flexibility time, but a general time goal that we're trying to maintain with it. Again, it's probably not well advised to allow young children to stay up all hours of the night or to not have like a bedtime or some type of routine to go in. And so, we usually try to eat dinner between 5:30 and 6:30. Again, an hour, allowing flexibility, considering the days, times, what all may be going. Generally around 8 o'clock is bath time and hair dry time because she's got some hair.
This is the time to be like militant about a routine when they're little. Like set it now so that you don't have to think about it when they're 4, 5, and 6. My kids don't fight me on anything. Literally, I say bath, they're gone. They're running into the bathtub. It's like their bodies know the routine so well now. They don't even have to think about it. They just go because they know what is to come after that. They have they have bath, and then they get their ice cream, and then they have book time, and then it's lights out, and they listen to a podcast as they go to sleep, something we call stories, but it's little stories for tiny people.
Aww.
Great little podcast if you have young kids. She comes up with the greatest little bedtime stories. I usually fall asleep, no surprise, because I am a sleeping champion. But yeah, my kids both fall asleep to that. And so, but I mean, we are so routine about those things. They get up about the same time every morning. Sometimes my daughter sleeps in, but for the most part, they're up at 7. We're just very routine driven animals. I mean, we all are. And if you can just get yourself into one, it can make life so much easier.
It can. So. Yeah. Everything about your body's physiological functioning really does improve whenever you have a good scheduled routine. From a medical standpoint, I mean, it just doesn't run in chaos. Like
No.
even from like an evolutionary standpoint, which I can go on like a big deep dive on talking about that whole kind of like from a health standpoint, all of that. But they are designed to be awake. They are designed to be asleep. They are designed to be active. They are designed to be fed all at certain points of time. And whenever that gets all messed up, everything is going to get all messed up from there. So really trying to get some type of effort going in this can just be so beneficial, and being forgiving in the process of it all the time.
Right. Knowing that it's not going to be perfect when you first start. Like again, I like to go back and read my journal entries from like 5-6 months ago, just to, because I think it's always good to see your growth. And I just started journaling again. It's not something I've been doing for very long. But I did a lot as a kid. I find that I'm going back to
really?
a lot of things. Yeah. Oh, I love to read my journals from when I was like Jack's age. My son is about to be 8.
You have them?
Oh, I do. And I love to just see what I would spend my time writing about, but my thought process as that age, I find it fascinating. And so, yeah, I just decided to start keeping a journal about a year ago. And I love it. I love to go back and read and see where my head was at 6 months ago, to see the progress that I've made. You know, I can sense my pride as I'm writing it each month, just in the progress that I'm making, or in things that I feel like I'm getting right, or how new opportunities are opening up to me. Like I love to see that. And so yeah, it's a big one for me lately, to go back and read and just get that sense of accomplishment. I'm like, okay, I was a hot mess in August and September. Like I didn't know what I was doing with my life. I felt worthless. I was like, what is happening? How am I going to do this? And now I'm like, you're doing it. You're actually doing it. You're putting into place the things that you said that you would. And I tell myself a lot of that when I get on my mat, when I meet myself or I work out. I'm like, you're doing it, you know, you're doing it. Or when I meditate, a lot of times I would say that to myself in the beginning, like, you're doing it. Better, you know, don't judge it. You're just doing it. And by that, you're being successful.
I love that. And here we are.
And here we are. I'm so proud of us. Episode 10 in the books.
Yes.
I mean, who would have thunk it, right?
I don't, not to rat some people out in our lives or anything, but whenever we were, but I'm going to do it anyway. See, that's the filter. I at least acknowledge it, right? Right? Not that forgives it, but whatever. Probably makes it worse, actually. I remember when we first started talking about this podcast, and some significant people in our lives were like, if you guys make it to 10, because they both know how we are, and you know, our lives are schedules, whatever, everything. And they're like, we're just going to be super impressed. Well, guess what, boys? We did.
We made it to 10. We got 10 in the books. We've got an awesome website up and running with some fantastic resources. So check us out on our webpage. Go to the LYLASpodcast.com. You can click on contact us, send us any feedback. We would love to hear from anybody that's listening, anybody that's stuck with us through all 10 episodes. Thank you, first and foremost. And second of all, go to our webpage and just give us something. Give us a thumbs up. I don't care what it is. I would love some feedback from some listeners on our webpage. And then, of course, you can catch us on social media at the LYLAS Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. We're trying, Sarah and I are learning. We're definitely showing our age, but we are learning Reels. We're learning TikToks. We're doing all the things. We've learned how to build a website, essentially, or at least keep it up and running, keep it going, and adding to it and keeping the format. It's been a lot. It's been a learning process. So I love it. I'm having so much fun, and I hope that our listeners are too.
Yes. And yes, please. And thank you. We already have had some people submit some great ideas to us, and believe us, we are getting to them. We are incorporating them in. We love the fact that you feel so comfortable sharing that with us, you know, because whatever you share an idea, it's like sharing a piece of yourself almost with someone else. And so thank you to all of you who have there's, some of them we're going to be talking about again are like transitions with our parents. And I think both of our moms listen to our podcast. So sorry, ladies, or guess what's coming? But how do we deal with those transitions with them being at different stages and us being at different stages? And then, having greater conversations about like, okay, so what's the plan if X starts to happen? Like we need to establish and have these conversations now so that way we're not in those moments and then find ourselves there. Another great topic that was submitted was talking about what it's like to live long term with, like long-term depression or anxiety. Like, what is that actually like for somebody to be in that place, to be in those shoes, and then to even treat it from a different standpoint? Like, how do you continue to work or to be within that zone? And so, we're going to incorporate some guests, I think, in future episodes to help us out. Our knowledge base is only so broad. And, we recognize and appreciate that, and that there are others that we want to kind of incorporate into. And so we've got a lot of fun surprises coming up for our next 10 episodes. So big party whenever we hit 20. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So give us some feedback. Definitely let us know what your thoughts are on some topics. We've got a lot more planned, but of course we want to hear from you. So if there's something that you want to hear specific, if you have specific questions for me or for Sarah, or something, topics again that you would like for us to specifically discuss, let us know. Hit us up on our website. Thanks for listening. Yeah. Until next week.
Mm-hmm. Out. This needs to be part of your scheduled routines. How about that? Just throw that in at the end.